For 1 year, additional lines just $30 each. Click, call, or visit a Spectrum store today.
Whether it's our stories, the warmth of our laugh, or our family's secret sauce, we all bring something different to the table. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/teamup.
Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
I'm Sharon Tazwell. Here's your Spectrum News in 90. New tariff threats. President Trump is recommending a 50% tariff on all goods from the European Union. The president says the move is due to a lack of progress in current trade negotiations. The steep new import tax would start June 1st. President Trump is also proposing a 25% tariff on Apple if products are not made in the U.S. And a federal judge has blocked the Trump administration's plan to ban Harvard University from enrolling foreign students. The move comes hours after the Ivy League school filed a lawsuit calling the move unconstitutional. The judge ruled it would have devastating impacts on thousands of students.
This is extortion. It's a vendetta using all powers of the government because of a political argument with Harvard. It is violating the First Amendment.
AAA expects more than 45 million people to travel this holiday weekend, marking the beginning of a busy summer travel season. Despite economic uncertainty, experts predict it will be a busy season due to dropping prices.
This is the first year in about 5 that I've seen prices coming down for flights. That's true of flights and hotels, anecdotally, but we are seeing a lot more deal alerts this year.
That's your Spectrum News in 90.
Welcome to The Big Deal. I'm Errol Lewis, national political anchor at Spectrum News. This program focuses on the future of our country and its people. And with a new administration in the White House and a new Congress, we're exploring the new people and policies and power that are shaping the nation. This week, the big deal was passage of President Trump's multi-trillion-dollar budget bill by the House of Representatives. The measure carried by exactly 1 vote. President Trump is now urging Senate Republicans to quickly approve the budget bill, which extends tax cuts passed during his first term and directs more money to the military and to border security. In order to pay for it all, the bill slashes funding for Medicaid, food assistance, education, and clean energy programs. And we're going to break down how those cuts will translate into local communities around the nation in just a minute. First, here's some reaction from lawmakers on Capitol Hill.
The House has passed generational, truly nation-shaping legislation.
This is one big, ugly bill that House Republicans are trying to jam down the throats of the American people.
Joining me now with more are 2 top political analysts. Holly Gregory is an anchor for Spectrum Bay News 9 in Tampa, Florida. Taylor Popolars is the Spectrum News national political reporter joining us from the White House. Holly, walk us through the top 2 or 3 things that are in this bill. What priorities did President Trump and the Republican lawmakers get most happy about when they finally passed by 1 vote?
Yeah, there's a lot, Errol. This is more than 1,000 pages, but the top 2 things in this bill are the 2 things that they view that the president won this election on, and that is the economy and the border. On the economy, first and foremost, it makes permanent the 2017 Trump tax cuts. Republicans said had that been allowed to expire, this would have amounted to a huge tax increase across the board for American families, so this provides some certainty now. Also, small business incentives, that's the main driver driver of the economy, small businesses. Also, no tax on tips, very popular. No tax on overtime, popular as well. And then also important for the economy as the trade war really heats up is there are deeper incentives, more tax deductions for production in the U.S., moving your production into the U.S., which of course is what Trump is trying to accomplish with this trade war, is to get more things made in the U.S. So that's the economic side, the big wins. The other is the border. And Trump has been very successful in locking down this border and making it secure. What he hasn't been able to do is his mass deportations. He has not had the money for that. And there's a lot of money for border security. There's upwards of $150 billion just to detain and deport. And in red states like Florida that have been really trying to ramp up detaining people for ICE and going into partnership with ICE, our local sheriffs right now are saying, you've got to stop bringing us people. We don't have room to put them. And so they have to have that infrastructure in place if they want to do this mass deportation plan. And this bill has the money, Errol, to do that.
Okay. So now, Taylor, on the other side of the ledger, Spectrum News has been tracking some of the cuts that are going to be made to different programs. What's that going to look like?
Yeah, you know, when these giant pieces of legislation get released, there are multiple entities that try to, go through the numbers and go through all the figures that Holly was pointing out and figure out how much this will cost and what impact it will have. One of them is what's called the Congressional Budget Office, which is a nonpartisan entity that basically scores legislation from both parties. And you hear from both parties complaints about this, but the estimates that have come out related to this bill, specifically targeting big areas that have been getting a lot of attention. Healthcare, because there are cuts to Medicaid and there are work requirements that would be worked into it if this became law. The Congressional Budget Office estimates over 8 million people would lose their health insurance due to those changes. There's also an impact on food stamps or SNAP benefits that millions of people rely on. The CBO estimates that over 3 million people would lose their monthly access to those benefits. That, again, is really crucial, especially for some families. And then there have been varying nonpartisan estimates that if this legislation, as it's billed today, became law, it would raise the deficit by several $1 trillion. So it's important to point out that this bill will change now that it goes to the Senate, but Republicans have largely been writing off the CBO estimates and saying they don't believe that's accurate. Democrats have been pouncing on it, but we're talking real-world implications if this legislation became law.
Okay, and now, Holly, one reason this went right down to the wire, one of the big sticking points up to the end was the fight over allowing families to deduct state and local tax payments from their federal tax bill. There are some Republicans in mostly Democratic districts who said that lifting that cap was a do-or-die issue for them, and I guess they got it done the way they needed it.
Yeah, it really was a battle, and they went to Matt on this and were successful because the current cap, the SALT cap deduction, is $10,000. But those blue state Republicans, they really fought hard, led by Representative Lawler in New York, and said we've got to have more relief for our constituents in these high tax states. So now they got that cap to $40,000. And that was a fight that they had to have against the budget hawks, who did not want to see this happen, because even though Republicans were sympathetic to, hey, we understand those people in blue states, New York, New Jersey, California, that are high tax, and you've got some Republican people who are voting for Republicans, and they're saying, but you got to give us tax relief. They were sympathetic to that argument, but there's also a little bit of resentment built in, because the feeling is among conservative Republicans and budget hawks is, hey, that's a high tax state problem, not our problem. They got to get their budgets under control.
Okay. So now, Taylor, the bill passed the House of Representatives by one vote. It's going to maybe get some changes in the Senate, but the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, is urging Republican senators not to modify anything significant because they would have to go through a House approval all over again. What is the timeline? When is a final bill expected?
So we're looking at weeks and potentially months, Errol. You know, House Speaker Johnson has said he would love for this to become law by July 4th, and that's kind of an informal deadline he has set. But to your point, Senate Republicans want to have their own, put their own mark on this bill, and there is going to be a long process. It could involve committee hearings, it could involve markups, it could involve debate, and Senate Republicans, like House Republicans had to do, will have to kind of have unity. They have 53 seats in the Senate. This bill would need 51 votes to pass, and Democrats are not expected to sign on to support support it. So any changes made in the Senate, as you pointed out, will then get kicked back to the House, and Johnson will have to see if he could pass that once again. There will, of course, be a lot of pressure from this White House and President Trump, so we'll see what happens over the summer, but that's going to be the defining story on Capitol Hill over the next few weeks.
All right. Thanks very much, Taylor. Thank you, Holly. We're going to take a break now, and when we come back, we'll talk about how President Trump made inroads with young voters last year. That's next on The Big Deal.
At Spectrum Noticias, we recognize that our community is vibrant and diverse.
Spectrum Noticias delivers balanced coverage of the stories that matter in our communities and across the country.
Our journalists are based in the neighborhoods we cover, ensuring you get in-depth reporting on what's happening in the places we call home.
So join us at Spectrum Noticias. We're always on, always there for you.
Now available on your TV. Check your local listings. Also available on the Spectrum News app.
Bring it to the party. Bring it to the top. Bring it to the party. Never gonna stop.
Enjoy. Unwind. Connect. With Spectrum TV On Demand. From the latest hit movies you've been waiting to watch to your favorite comfort shows and more. All available instantly for you to stream. Create the all-around entertainment experience you've always wanted with Spectrum TV On Demand. Browse over 80,000 on-demand titles today.
Being a cowboy, well, I don't know anything different. I had a very successful career. Life was fast. I was preparing physically. I wasn't doing anything mentally. And then I got hurt. I dug into mental health. I wanted to be better as a person. I start my day with a workout. I live life 8 seconds at a time. Find a place to stop and just breathe. Love your mind.
I'm Sandra, this is Jorge, and we were adopted in 2019. I remember when they first came to us, Michael was already a teenager. The whole cliche of they're so lucky to have you guys, and it's the other way around. They have changed our family for the better. They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
Watching The Big Deal, where we are continuing our series on the evolving landscape of American voters. In recent episodes, we've examined trends among Latino and Asian voters. Today, we're talking about the youth vote, which President Trump lost by 4 percentage points last year. That was actually a sharp improvement compared to 2020, but 4 months into his second term, a batch of new polls finds that the president is at risk of losing his gains among voters under 30 years old. Young Americans affected by Trump administration policies say that they have grown increasingly unhappy with the president's job performance, and that includes college students who rely on federal funding. Spectrum News reporter Jennifer Roberts has a report from North Carolina about the impact of Trump's cuts to education.
What do you need? Kalatza Ramirez and Jordan McAfee both study social work. They're also first-generation students at Johnson C. Smith University.
You're going to go to the next TRIO trip?
TRIO is a federal program serving first-generation and low-income students on campuses nationwide. It offers services like tutoring, mentoring, and financial guidance.
The journey has been very hard, and it is through them that I made it this far.
Without TRIO, these students tell me their academic journeys might have turned out different.
Honestly, I may have dropped out.
TRIO's future is a bit in limbo because it's funded through the Department of Education. Weeks back, President Donald Trump signed an executive order aimed at dismantling the Department of Education. But on Thursday, a federal judge blocked the order. The White House says they're challenging the ruling. But the president is also proposing budget cuts. It would eliminate funding for TRIO programs altogether.
At this time, I think that we are all in a space of uncertainty.
Kenyatta Reed is director director of TRIO Student Support Services at JCSU. She says TRIO is serving at least 185 students on campus.
We just provide an extra layer of financial literacy, of academic skill development.
Reed is a TRIO alum herself. She wants lawmakers to understand how critical the services are for first-gen students.
Consider the futures of our students.
Jennifer Roberts, Spectrum News 1.
Joining me now with some analysis of the youth vote is Rachel Janfaza, the founder of Up and Up Strategy, a research and consulting firm focused on reaching Gen Z. And Rachel, we often refer to voters under 30 as a single group, but you've actually been studying and writing about a divide among Gen Z voters, making a distinction between those who had pretty much come of age and were adults when the pandemic hit in 2020 and those who were still in high school. You're calling that younger group Gen Z 2.0. And you wrote something I wanted to follow up on. You wrote that this second group felt the emotional toll as government mismanagement kept them in lockdown and away from their friends. Frustration with rules that seemed ineffective or hypocritical fueled a rebellious posture that has lingered, leaving Gen Z 2.0 skeptical toward people in charge who pretend to know what they're doing. Is that disillusionment you're writing about? Is that what gave President Trump so much support from younger voters this time?
Well, first of all, Errol, thank you so much for having me. I do think, as you pointed out, that this anti-authority sentiment resulting from COVID-19 and the pandemic-era lockdowns was a big part of what shifted younger members, that Gen Z 2.0, younger members of Gen Z, to the right in 2024. I also think that's been paired with a frustration with political correctness that was bubbling up during the pandemic and has lingered on afterwards, that I'm hearing is coming from both members of Gen Z 1.0 and Gen Z 2.0. So overwhelmingly, young people are frustrated with political correctness and did see Trump in 2024 as the opposite of that in many ways. And the third thing is that the economy really is the top issue for young people. And there were many young people who felt that for whatever reason, President Trump would have a better handling of that than former President Biden would have had, and that was part of their movement to the right as well.
Okay, so now the latest Harvard Youth poll surveyed 18 to 29-year-olds, and it finds some disillusionment. More than half of them currently believe the United States is heading in the wrong direction under President Trump. And the polling shows young voters are not happy about his immigration policies or issues like abolishing the Department of Education, as we saw. But those are things that Trump clearly signaled he was going to do. Were voters not paying attention?
I mean, I think that it's not necessarily that they weren't paying attention, but it's kind of a prioritization of issues. And overwhelmingly, one of the things that I hear in my listening sessions with young people is that this generation feels worse off than their parents were when they were their age. And President Trump uses this nostalgic rhetoric that harkens back to times that they wish they had, and that was part of their decision-making process as well.
How should the political parties approach this voting bloc ahead of the upcoming midterms?
The most important thing to understand is that young voters aren't so different from older voters after all. And my biggest advice to both parties would be to approach them like they would any other voting bloc, listen to and legitimize their concerns without brushing them off before offering a path forward.
So now, I mean, when commercial marketers are trying to think of who they want to appeal to, they're always going to this same kind of demographic because they're going to be consumers for the next 30 or 40 years. Political parties don't necessarily operate that way, right? I mean, should we expect younger candidates to be the leaders who sort of indicate the direction where these voters are going to go?
It's an interesting question. I think when I ask young people this, it comes down to both personality and policy, and age isn't necessarily the determining factor. But when you look at Gen Z as a voting bloc, this generation has demonstrated high youth voter turnout in a way that prior generations hadn't. In 2024, there was 47% youth voter turnout, according to Circle at Tufts, and that's nearly as high as it was in 2020, which was a historic high of 50%. And so while this generation is deeply, deeply frustrated, they're not tuning out of politics altogether. They're actually turning out in high numbers. And so I think that that is a sign to both parties that they really should be paying attention to this voting bloc because their loyalties are not solidified yet, and they're a very persuadable group that does care and feels that their life is deeply affected by the issues that politicians are legislating.
Okay. Thank you so much for all of that insight. Great to talk with you, Rachel Janfaza. Okay, we're not done just yet. Coming up next, we'll take a closer look at the exclusive dinner hosted by President Trump for the top holders of his name-branded cryptocurrency. Stay with The Big Deal.
For the millions of school-aged children across the country, the state of their schools can have a lasting impact on their health and well-being.
The majority of school districts aren't doing comprehensive regular water quality testing.
As CO2 levels rise in a space, cognitive function takes a direct decline.
We visit 2 school districts working to create safe and healthy environments for their students.
Watch Exploring Your Health, Curing Our Classrooms, available on the Spectrum News app.
Look at this.
Sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. Everything that's wonderful is what I feel when we're together.
Oh, that was funny.
It's all about connecting with seamless connectivity. And internet customers get 1 mobile line included for 1 year with Spectrum.
What are you doing in there? What's that?
I wouldn't do that. What are you doing? What are you looking for?
Mom was always organized, but she started forgetting to pay her bills on time.
And she'd buy the same gifts over and over.
Telling the girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was really hard.
At first we had our cries, but then we were like, okay, let's make a plan.
Early detection gave us time to adapt together.
It's so important for you to think about what you can do and making the most of what you have.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
You're watching The Big Deal. This week, President Trump hosted a dinner for the highest-paying customers of his name brand meme coin. The Trump coin is a digital product that has no intrinsic value, but has attracted enough buyers to make billions of dollars for the Trump family, the Trump Organization, and affiliated groups. More than 200 investors were wined and dined Thursday night at Trump's Virginia Golf Club. This is a look at a video from the event posted by an attendee. The top 25 diners also attended a private reception with the president and got a tour of the White House. Now, that's a big deal because it marks yet another opportunity for wealthy people to buy access to the President of the United States. And that has drawn accusations from Democrats and other critics that Trump is selling access to the White House. The Trump coin has been hovering at about $15 this month after hitting a high of $73 shortly after its launch before Inauguration Day. Joining me now with more on that is Caleb Silver. He's the editor-in-chief of Investopedia. And Caleb, for our viewers who may not know, explain how meme coins work and why they have value at all, and break down how President Trump may benefit from the surge in price of the Trump coin.
Yeah, meme coins are digital currencies, usually created off of a meme. Your viewers may be familiar with Dogecoin. That was basically a digital currency created off of a software joke by developers that turned out to have a really wild ride several years ago and is still widely traded. So a meme coin is really not backed by anything. It's not backed by dollars, not backed by gold. It's backed by a belief by a bunch of investors who want to pump the price higher. So in the case of the Trump coin, this is a meme coin that the president created right before he took office. This is really a bet on the president's popularity and on his prosperity, and it adds to his prosperity given that he owns a lot of the Trump coin, and entities that own most of it are controlled by the Trump family.
Right. And the Trump allied team that launched the meme coin also gets fees when the coins are bought or traded, including through a debit card friendly buy now button right on the coin's website. The team has earned an estimated $1.25 million in fees just over this past week alone. phone. So who were some of the attendees of the private dinner, and what favors or government actions may they have been trying to get from President Trump?
Yeah, notably, one is Justin Sun. He was the creator of the Tron cryptocurrency network. He is a billionaire, multi-billionaire. But a few years ago, the U.S. Treasury Department's Federal Crime Enforcement Task Force said that there was $26 billion of illicit activity running through his crypto network, and there was an injunction by the Securities and Exchange Commission. That has recently been stayed by the Trump administration for at least 60 days while they review it. He is the #1 purchaser of the Trump coin. He had a front and center seat and time with the president at the country club in Virginia at the dinner. And he also got, one of 4 people got the $100,000 Trump Tourbillon watch that was given to the 4 top buyers of the cryptocurrency. So he's one of them. Lamar Odom, a former NBA player who also has his own meme coin, allegedly was there as well. And there were other entrepreneurs like Vincent Liu. He's the chief investment officer of Kronos Research. They're based out in Asia. And a lot of them are trying to get access to the president. This is about proximity to power in the crypto industry, because we know the Trump administration has embraced the crypto industry both through the meme coin and of promises to continue to deregulate the industry so that more people can have access to it and more coins can be created and more wealth can be generated by those that own it, those on the inside in particular.
Okay, so now Democratic critics, including Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut, call the whole arrangement corrupt. The White House, of course, is pushing back. Watch a little bit of this back and forth.
This private, secret dinner in which individuals who have put money in Donald Trump's pocket get access to him is maybe the most corrupt of all of the corruption.
The American public believe it's absurd for anyone to insinuate that this president is profiting off of the presidency.
I mean, there's no insinuation needed here, right? I mean, the president, or at least his companies, they are literally profiting by giving top investors access to the president, right? I mean, the more important question, though, is just from some of the names you were describing, the cryptocurrency industry is really unregulated, and I guess they want to stay that way.
Yeah, they want to loosen regulations even further. It was just last year, 2 years ago, in fact, that the Securities and Exchange Commission allowed a Bitcoin spot exchange traded fund to be made available to the public. But I think that this administration has been promising wider deregulation to potentially have crypto in our 401ks. There is a crypto czar named David Sachs, named by the president. The Securities and Exchange Commission has a task force around it. So you better believe that the doors are going to become more wide open for more cryptocurrency trading, more origination of crypto tokens, and more ways for those, again, on the inside to enrich themselves. The folks that own the Trump coin, anybody could buy it, but the early buyers and the biggest holders have benefited the most. A lot of people have lost money since it went all the way up to 75 right after inauguration, and now is down in around the $13 per coin range. But again, remember this, it's not backed by dollars. You could go trade that in for dollars. It is backed by the belief that that coin will go higher for some reason or another. So you're betting on a belief, you're betting on a meme, and in this case, you're betting on an individual, the president himself, who actually owns, through his corporate entities, 80% of the Trump coin. His sons, the White House says all of that is controlled by his sons, not the president, but still it is in the family.
Okay. Thank you very much for all of that, Caleb Silver. Great talking with you. And thank you all for joining us for this episode of The Big Deal. We'll see you next week. Stay tuned to your local station.
Friday nights, The Big Deal with Errol Lewis, where Spectrum News' local political journalists break down the most important issues shaping our nation.
Here's the deal. People need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 Eastern, 8 Central on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all of your favorite devices, exclusively on Spectrum.
It's game time at the arena, and 20,000 fans are looking for a win. With an ultra-high-speed network and seamless Wi-Fi, fans can get in the door fast and share the game's best moments in real time. And with Spectrum Business committed to keeping them connected 100% of the time, they won't miss a second of the action. A secure, reliable connection from Spectrum Business means the fan experience is a guaranteed win.
Weather can be beautiful, inconvenient, and at times powerful. And it affects everything we do. At Spectrum News Plus, our weather experts update you with the information and the context you need so you can better plan your day. And we do it every 10 minutes. We're the calm in the storm. Weather on the Ones on Spectrum News Plus, exclusively on Spectrum. And get your weather anytime on the Spectrum News app. Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app